Here's part 16 of Sophie and Jumong. Don't forget to share this with 5 friends, hit that subscribe button, and tell me which character you like the most so far. Then see if anyone else has the same favorite as you. Thanks for watching. As Elias drove Gina back to the villa, her phone rang. It was her mother. She quickly reached for it, but her hands began to tremble. Still, she answered, her voice soft. "Hi, Mom. I'll call you when I get home." Her mother greeted her gently and agreed. But as the call ended, the phone slipped from her hand. A sudden wave of weakness swept over her. Elias glanced at her, concerned. "Are you okay?" he asked. Gina touched her forehead, wincing. A sharp headache was building behind her eyes. The night had been long and bright, filled with violins, laughter, and a storm of elegant faces she didn't know how to place. Suddenly, she pressed her fingers to her temple, a quiet wince escaping her lips. She nodded quickly, though her breath faltered. "Just a headache, it's sharp. Came out of nowhere." Concern flickered across his face. "Should I stop?" "Yes, please, just for a minute." He gently eased the car off the main road onto a quiet, tree-lined shoulder. The engine murmured low as he turned the key and set the brake. The silence that followed was still and heavy. "Do you want to get out and stretch?" he asked, gently. She gave a faint nod and opened the door slowly, stepping out into the fresh night air. Elias came around to her side, quiet and attentive. She leaned slightly against the side of the car, her hand still cradling the side of her head. "Hold on," he said. "Let me get you water." He opened the trunk and pulled out a bottle from the small emergency kit. When he returned, he unscrewed the cap before handing it to her. "Here, small sips." She took it with trembling fingers, murmuring, "Thank you." He stood beside her, but not too close, giving her space while watching carefully. Her shoulders were tense, her breath shallow. "Do you want to sit?" he asked. "Back seat might be more comfortable for a minute." She shook her head. "I just need air." Elias didn't push. He leaned back against the side of the car, folding his arms as he kept his eyes on her face. The way she was holding herself, delicately, as if she might break, stirred something in him he hadn't expected. She didn't say much, but it was in her silences, the fight behind her stillness, the way she blinked rapidly, refusing to let the ache pull her down. "You can rest," he said gently. Gina let out a small laugh, but it cracked. "You don't even know me." He looked at her then, really looked. "No, but I can still care." She turned to face him, surprised. Their eyes met under the dim moonlight. It wasn't planned. It wasn't charged. Just two people, holding each other's gaze longer than strangers should. And something passed between them. Gina had never really looked at Elias before. Not like this. But now she saw something else. Warmth, worry, and something soft behind his eyes, like he carried more kindness than he showed. Her headache throbbed again, but she forgot it for a moment. Elias felt it too. He didn't understand it. He barely knew her, but the sight of her blinking up at him, vulnerable and trying to stay strong, made something tighten in his chest. It wasn't pity. It wasn't duty. It was instinct. To protect. To understand. To stay. She looked away quickly, flustered. "Sorry." "For what?" he asked softly. "I don't know, for staring." He gave a quiet smile. "I was doing the same." The moment broke. She stepped back slightly and opened the car door again. "I think I'm okay to go now," she said, her voice more composed. He nodded and helped her in gently, closing the door behind her with care. Then he walked around, slid into the driver's seat, and pulled back onto the road. The drive continued in silence, but it wasn't empty. It was full of a glance that had said too much, and the quiet echo of something just beginning. Back at Jumong's parents' home, the anniversary celebration was far from what Madame Lee had envisioned. Frustrated and bitter, she stormed into the study and confronted Chairman Lee, her voice sharp with accusation. "I helped you," she began, her tone trembling with fury. "I even agreed to call him my son." He wouldn't have had any claim to your name if my father hadn't saved you, she screamed. Chairman Lee stood firm, silencing her with a calm but cold stare. Yes, your father saved me, he said evenly, because he wanted me to marry you. You should be grateful. I married you for Jumong's sake to protect him. But Madam Lee fired back without hesitation. No, you married me to shield that woman, that poor girl with no background. Don't lie to me. I know you still love her. I just spoke to the staff. They said most guests were whispering about Sophie and Jumong, how amazing to love regardless of the culture differences. Madam Lee's shoulders stiffened. Madam Lee, coldly, so that's what you came to tell me? That your son's mystery girl outshined my entire event? Chairman Lee, no. I came to tell you I will not allow you to hurt Jumong. He's in love. You will respect that. She turned sharply, eyes flashing with a wounded rage. Madam Lee, respect? What about the respect I've earned in this family? For building this name? For carrying this house when you couldn't even look at your daughter without guilt? Chairman Lee, don't twist this into something else. Madam Lee, voice rising, you think I didn't see it? Jumong gets your pride, your admiration, your trust. But hey, Jin, she's broken, she's lonely, and it's your fault. Chairman Lee, angrily, that's not true. Madam Lee, hurling her wine glass at the floor. You still love his mother, don't you? Don't lie to me. A silence gripped the room like a fist. Glass glistened on the marble floor. The staff downstairs froze. No one dared climb those stairs. Chairman Lee walked toward her slowly. Chairman Lee, quietly, it's not like that. Madam Lee laughed bitterly through her tears. Madam Lee, don't insult me. You never looked at me the way you looked at her. Even after all these years, even after she disappeared. That's why you buried yourself in Jumong, because he's her son. And now, every time you praise him, every time you defend him, it's her you're loving. He reached out. She stepped back. Madam Lee, voice cracking, you're the reason our daughter is sad. She's always felt second, and now you've made it worse. Chairman Lee, tired, eyes weary. That's enough. She stared at him, then looked away. Her chest rose and fell quickly. Madam Lee, whispering, you never told him, did you? Chairman Lee froze. Madam Lee, you think hiding the truth makes you noble? He deserves to know. He left her standing in the ruins of the night. Behind her, the broken glass sparkled like shattered trust. The morning air outside the university campus was unusually still, as though even the breeze had paused to read the headlines. In cafes, newsstands, and mobile alerts buzzing across the city, Sophie's face appeared again and again. Her hand in Jumong's, her gown catching light, her eyes steady despite the cameras. And beneath every photo, one question pulsed louder than the rest. Who is Sophie Nam? The woman who danced beside power. Heir to the empire chooses foreign flame. Inside a small newspaper stand just outside the main lecture hall, students leaned in, eyes wide. She's really not Korean, one girl whispered. But look at her. She doesn't even look nervous in the photos, said another, scrolling quickly through an article titled, From Namibia to the Han Estate, a Love Story or a Distraction. By the time Sophie stepped through the university gates, the murmurs were already alive. A few classmates gave small nods of respect. Some offered thin smiles. Most just watched, unsure of what to say. She walked calmly, her posture perfect, clutching only a pen case and her exam card. Her long coat brushed the back of her calves, and though her eyes didn't flinch, her fingers tightened slightly on the zipper of her bag. Gina met her at the stairwell, eyes wide, breath fast. You've seen it? She asked. Sophie nodded. All of it? Front page, blog posts, even a quiz titled, Would You Be Picked Like Sophie Nam? She said, a tired laugh under her breath. Gina sighed. It's insane. But you know what? You were breathtaking. And you didn't just survive that ballroom, You stole it. Sophie gave her a grateful look. Let's just pass these exams. I'd like to be remembered for more than a dance. They entered the hallway together, the sound of polished shoes and hushed voices trailing behind them. Inside the large exam hall, rows of desks were already filling, whispers scattered like wind through the aisles. At Sophie's assigned seat, something unexpected lay waiting. A folded newspaper with her and Jumong's picture on the front page. Someone had circled her face in red ink. And beside it, written in jagged Korean script, "You don't belong here." Gina's breath caught. Sophie didn't flinch. She calmly folded the paper and placed it under her desk. Then she took out her ID, set down her pen, and looked forward. The invigilator called for silence. The rustling stopped. The exam papers were handed out. And Sophie Nam, Namibian by birth, Korean by love, sat taller than ever, not because the world approved, but because she no longer needed it to. The exam was over. The tension that had filled Sophie's shoulders slowly eased as she stepped out of the exam hall, her papers sealed, her pen slipping back into her case. Gina was right behind her, looping her arm through Sophie's with a wide smile. "That's it," Gina whispered. "The last exam. Freedom!" Sophie smiled. The sun had started to warm the courtyard, and the light felt different, as though the universe had decided to reward her with a softer sky. But she didn't feel free, not yet, not with the memory of that circled photo still whispering under her skin, not with cameras pointed at her life like it was a performance. "Come to the canteen with me," Gina said. "Everyone's there. We usually go after the final paper. Just breathe a little." Sophie hesitated. Gina gave her a look. "You've walked through worse. This is just food, with friends." So they went. The university canteen was buzzing. Students filled every corner, laughing, chatting, eating fast. Most were still in uniform or sweatshirts, hair messy from study marathons. The scent of noodles and freshly baked rolls floated through the air. Trays clinked. Laughter bounced off the walls. As Sophie and Gina stepped in, heads turned. At first, it was just a few gazes, then more. A hush seemed to chase them down the corridor. But then, cheers broke out. Not loud, not chaotic, but real, genuine. Soft claps, friendly whoops, hands raised in greeting. Gina's friends had spotted them. 3 girls from her art class and 2 guys from the theater club, all seated around the long table near the window. "Sophie!" one girl said, waving. "We saw you last night. You were beautiful." Another leaned forward. "Girl, that dance, that entrance, that dress? You gave us goosebumps." Sophie's heart jumped. Her first instinct was to step back, but Gina gave her a small nudge forward. The whole canteen seemed to turn. And then, without warning, the doors swung open. The servers came out carrying trays, but they weren't alone. One of them was Jumong, dressed in a simple black apron over a white shirt, sleeves rolled, a tray of tea in his hands. Calm, smiling. The students gasped. It was not an illusion, it was him, Lee Jumong, heir to the Han legacy, in their canteen, carrying drinks. The place froze. He walked forward, eyes on Sophie. "Excuse me," he said, soft and clear. "May I serve you?" Sophie stood there, stunned. Then she laughed, pure, surprised, delighted. "You did not just do this," she said. He handed her a cup. "I'm here to serve the most important guest on this campus." "You did not just do this," she said. He handed her a cup. "I'm here to serve the most important guest on this campus, and maybe win a few hearts along the way." The room erupted. Applause, louder now. Phones came out, but not in mockery, in admiration. Sophie hugged him, unable to stop smiling. Jumong bowed playfully to her, then turned to the students. "Thank you for being kind to Sophie. It means the world to me." He didn't need to say more. The way he looked at Sophie said everything. Students gathered around as he moved from table to table, pouring tea and laughing with them. A group of boys from the engineering department came forward and asked shyly, "Hyung, can you sign our sketch pads?" He nodded. "Of course." "Sir," one of the campus photographers said, "can I take a picture of you two? It's for our university bulletin." Sophie looked at Jumong. He just smiled. "Only if she agrees." She did. The shutter clicked. Cameras captured not royalty, not a scandal, not mystery, just two people in love surrounded by warmth. One girl leaned over to Sophie and whispered, "You made us believe we could belong too. Thank you." Jumong watched the interaction and turned to the room. "You're all brilliant. I hope you continue to support one another, not tear each other down. That's the world I want her to live in. That's the world you deserve too." A young journalism student called out, "You're the most humble rich man I've seen in this country." Laughter followed. Jumong lifted his cup. "To Sophie Nam, and to all of you who dare to be different. Cheers." They sat at a corner table afterward. Sophie still looked stunned. He leaned in. "I couldn't bear to let this place make you feel small." And in the middle of ordinary trays and chipped mugs and joyful noise, Sophie realized that this moment, not the gala, not the dance floor, this was the one she'd remember.